Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Feeling Smarter. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Tim Miller. G'day, Tim. How are you?
Yeah, going pretty well, Aaron. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Well, we are turning our attention to the topic of death. We do have our upcoming SMSF Death Benefits Masterclass, where we are introducing our new family, the Coopers, which we highlighted at our recent SMSF Day events. It's funny that we're killing off some of the members of a new family that we're introducing, but anyway, that's just the cycle of our masterclasses at the moment. So Tim, today we wanted to touch on the area of trusteeship where a member of the fund dies, because when we think about someone that passes away in a self-managed super fund, there's a number of layers that we need to consider. So we need to look at the member itself and, at what stage of life were they in receipt of a pension, were they accumulation and so forth. We've got a number of tax considerations, but then we've also got the requirements around them being a trustee or director of that fund.
Yep.
So the focus here is for us to say, when that member dies, what steps do we actually need to undertake here?
Yeah, so I guess the key is that from a trusteeship point of view, there's always the nuance with the self-managed super fund that the members are related, right? Yep. In let's say 95%, I don't know the stat, but in a lot of self-managed super funds, the surviving members are generally spouses, if not family members. So when a member dies, firstly, subject to nominations and other things that we'll talk about in another video in the coming weeks. The instructions, the plans for the fund may be very much laid bare and quite clear to everybody with what needs to proceed. But then you've got the key thing behind it all, and that is the definition of a self-managed superannuation fund. And that really requires that obviously all members must be trustees and all trustees must be members or directors of the corporate trustee. And of course, more importantly, the rules around single member funds. So if one member passes away, what the trusteeship requires there. So it then takes us down this path of going, well, what's really important to understand is, one, what's the definition of a member from the fund? And then two, what are the trustee requirements for the fund that we're dealing with based on the circumstance of one member passing away? Because legislatively, the way that the SIS Act is written, it's permissive, right? So it's providing permission for somebody else to act on behalf of the member in certain events. And one of those events is when they've passed away, because they can no longer act. And so the SIS Act provides for the capacity to have the member's legal personal representative replace them as trustee in the event that they pass away. But then ultimately it's going to come down to the governing rules. So what the trust deed says with reference to whether there's a mandate behind that appointment. And then the payment method will determine whether there is in fact even a need for that appointment. And so there's a number of things to contemplate there.
Yeah, so I think that's a really important first step that people understand is the fact that our 17A3 goes into the requirements that say, well, when someone has died or even in the event of incapacity, we can have someone come and step into the shoes of that individual.
Yep.
But it's a permissive function, not a mandatory function, unless your deed prescribes that you must do it. So you need to be abundantly clear as to what the deed is saying. So we at Smarter SMSF, our deed correlates with what the law says. So if you want to appoint that person and that person ultimately decides that they are happy to take on that role, well, then you can have them appointed as such. So that would be that first step. And then, Tim, we have some important timeframes around the duration of which that person will be able to be in there. And then following that, a timeframe that we must adhere to ensure that subsequent to the death benefit, that the fund then continues to meet the SMSF definition.
Yeah, so that's where I was getting towards when I decided I probably needed to take a breath and allow you to jump in and save me in that regard. But that definition piece, which is not currently, which is permissive with regards to satisfying the definition of self-managed super fund, it goes further to talk about the whole concept of how the timeframes, as you just alluded to, when there is a change in circumstances where you have to ensure that the fund satisfies the definition of a self-managed fund. So, for example, whilst we're talking about death now, if somebody joins a self-managed super fund, it's immediate. So they must become a trustee immediately upon joining the fund to ensure that the fund satisfies the definition of a self-managed fund. But in the event that a member passes away, then effectively the legislation provides a period of 6 months where the fund is deemed to still be meeting the definition of a self-managed super fund. So if we don't have that legal personal representative appointed, right, and therefore satisfying the definition, if no one's appointed, then you've effectively got that 6 months from death to ensure that you then subsequently do meet the definition. And again, that's where corporate versus individual will come into it, because a corporate trustee might automatically satisfy the definition if you've now got a single member sole director, but individual trustees, that's not going to work. So they're sort of the key things to take into consideration, is that there is time to rectify these situations when a member's passed away. And then there's one other timing piece, which is the important part of the permissive nature, and that is that the permissive capacity to appoint the legal personal representative is for a fixed time. And that fixed time is that they can only be appointed until the death benefit commences to be paid. And then they reference either the income stream commencing or an interim death benefit lump sum being paid.
Yeah, so that can be a very, very short period of time, obviously, and you would need to go through the appropriate steps for their appointment and then obviously their removal. So not only documenting those decisions, but effectively reporting that information through to all the regulators, both ASIC and the ATO as well. So, so I guess, Tim, is there any other things here that we should be contemplating around the trusteeship of the fund where a member dies?
Look, well, we don't want to give away too much of our gold from our masterclass there, Aaron, but I think one of the key things is that you want to understand and want to have an appreciation for what the member's interest is with regards to the payment of their benefits. So what you're wanting to avoid more than anything from an estate planning point of view is conflict. Now, a lot of that can come down to documentation, but appointments will often create conflict as well. So it's really important to understand who is being appointed, if somebody is being appointed, the ramifications of that appointment. So is something possibly challengeable because there's a question mark as to who the legal personal representative is and other things. So you really want to make sure when you are making that appointment that you're doing it through the proper channels and ensuring that all parties are aware of the situation.
Yeah, and these are some of the things that we'll be highlighting in this upcoming masterclass on the 18th of June. So trying to, I guess, learn lessons from the various case law that we've seen over some period of time about, who ultimately will hold the power here, and the fact that there might be multiple executors that could be appointed, and whether one gets appointed or they jointly get appointed, and the pros and cons of what might sort of fold out of those as well. So they're just some of the things ultimately that we're going to be exploring in this upcoming SMSF Death Benefits Masterclass. So again, you can find out more on our website, smartersmsf.com/events. You can look up the Masterclass event and find out more. It is hugely interactive. They are a key feature of our webinar calendar each and every year. So you've got to get your skates on, Tim, and start to put it all together, it sounds like.
Sounds like I've got a busy couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you once again, mate. Great to catch up.
See you next week.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us for this week's edition of Feeling Smarter. Over the next couple of weeks, we will continue our journey around SMSF death benefit payments as we head towards our masterclass on the 18th of June. Have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.
See you all.